today we're taking a whole farm system and a value chain approach to thinking about how we're going to address and drive productivity in our production system. When we start thinking about how we take that approach, if we can get a deeper understanding of our consumer, understanding what drives consumers to buy your product, regardless of where they are in the world, and thinking about how our supply chain needs to evolve. Our brand specifications are maturing. We're starting to see better alignment and tighter brand specifications to meet both the customer and ultimately a consumer need. And then what signals get passed back from those brand owners back into our supply chain, into our production system, thinking about how new technology and new information is going to inform the decisions that you need to make further back in your production system. So this morning, the very first session, we're going to look at how we take that information in the production system and thinking about how does our production system need to evolve? How does the on-farm production system need to evolve? Regardless of whether you're breeding livestock for backgrounding, whether you're supplying direct into feedlots, direct to processing, or you're in the live export business, the production system and the efficiencies that we can gain, there's a unique opportunity for us to do a lot better, build more resilience into the businesses, and get more focused on the end game. What are we really producing these animals for? Where are the efficiencies that we can pick up? The other opportunity we have, and part of the change that we're making within MLA and in partnership with our producers and researchers, is that we're embedding adoption into R&D. We're not investing in R&D without a clear pathway through to adoption and commercialisation of the outcomes of those investments. I think that's going to create an opportunity to shorten up the time from R&D investment through to adoption. And we're also then aligning our investments in R&D and adoption to directly address the producer priorities that are developed through our regional consultation framework. So I'm going to hand over to our panel and the program managers of our research, development and adoption programs in David Beatty and David Packer, and they'll introduce a geographically spread technical experts across our panel that will share their insights and experience with you throughout the morning. So David Beatty, I believe you're up first, so I'm going to hand over to you, and please join me in welcoming David Beatty to the stand.
So this morning, before we start, I'll just give you a run through of the agenda. So the way we're going to work this is I'm going to give a brief overview of what I've described as the R&D challenge, and then I'll pass over to David Packer, my colleague, who will talk about adoption. Dave's in charge of our adoption programs. And then we'll spend quite a bit of time, an hour or so, with the panel that we've put together this morning. So Basil Doonan will facilitate this process. It'll be questions and answers, but we just want to use, I guess, quite a wide breadth across the R&D and adoption supply chain to give sort of real-life examples around how these people are building resilience within their businesses and contributing to R&D and adoption for our industry. So let's get cracking, and I said I would run through the definition of this, the presentation, in order so we can get ourselves on the same page. We talk about building resilience, and the context for building resilience is around, are we doing the right R&D for maximising the opportunities for red meat businesses? Are we using R&D to build resilience for the farm business? And that's sort of the context around building resilience. Then the other part of the title is changing climate. So I'm not just referring to the obvious around dealing with some of the climatic extremes that we're experiencing within the industry, but also talking about the climate insofar as consumers are changing, consumer expectations are changing, and also the markets are evolving as well. So global markets and domestic markets are changing. So these differing climates are something we also need to consider in the context of R&D and adoption. And the third part, and this is again stating the obvious, we can't have this resilience, we can't adapt to change without maintaining or recognising that producers still need to make money. We must be profitable and we must be sustainable. And then I guess the key is all these three things are interlinked. So these three things have to be all happening together, and producers, and the panel that we've got here this morning have all got examples of that, of how these three key components are all working together to help with R&D and investments on their properties and or parts of the supply chain. So I'll get cracking and I'll talk about the R&D challenge. So for us, the issues are around, it's a big country, sheep, cattle, goats, north, south, east, west, and there's many challenges from a producer perspective where we can use R&D to help solve. Now they can be almost localised to a property, to a region, to a species, to a particular climate. So we recognise from a producer perspective there are opportunities and there are challenges. Then we've also got the industry. So whether it's MLA or our peak councils, driven by the Meat Industry Strategic Plan, we do have directions and we do have to fulfil, I guess, the broader industry commitments around how we invest in research and development. And then we've got the consumer, and I mentioned before, the consumer's changing. So they're thinking about provenance, where their food comes from, animal welfare, sustainability, the environment. All these things we need to consider as an industry around how we invest in R&D. So for me, the challenge for us is how do we fit those three components together in order to try and determine where we invest our dollars around research and development. Now we do have a producer consultation process, so this is the mechanism whereby we can make, I guess, grassroots contact with growers to understand what the issues and challenges are on a regional basis. So this is a bit of a busy slide, but if we start on the left-hand side, right-hand side for you guys, and talk about producers. So there are ways. We've broken it into three areas, and we call them regional, like a regional consultation process. So we have NABRAC in the north, SALRAC covering the south and east, and WALRAC in the west. And these are organisations whereby there are regional committees or producer members which sit on these RACs, these bodies, which I guess engage at producer grassroots level to try and understand where gaps and opportunities are to invest in research and development. Then these RACs sit on or are part of what we call a red meat panel, and so that red meat panel is in place to look at more at a national level, understanding what the industry needs, understanding what the producers are telling us, and also getting insights from MLA and others around what the consumers are needing. How do we then develop priorities and go out to an annual call for researchers to, I guess, put in projects to invest in those priorities? So we do have a consultation process in place which does allow us to understand what the needs are from a grassroots perspective. The challenge for us is to make sure that we're getting the industry and the consumer and the producer needs being met through that process. So we need two-way dialogue through that consultation process. We need you telling us what the regional issues and challenges are, and also those RACs and regional committees going back and telling to producers, well, are you comfortable with the direction that our research is focused on? So to sum things up around the opportunities, as I said before, we must fulfil that R&D challenge. I think that's really important, getting that two-way communication going. We do need to start looking at larger programs of work with big impact. So that's the direction MLA is taking. We need to be really clear around where big impact areas are and start investing more dollars in, I guess, less but well-identified key areas. The use of the levy and the MLA donor company. So now we've got obviously the levy dollar, which is matched by the federal government to invest in R&D. We also have the opportunity with the MLA donor company to take money outside of levies from either commercial, university, state governments, anything that's not sourced from the federally, to utilise the MLA donor company to also drive investment, to make sure we're leveraging the maximum amount of money that's available from the federal government to invest in our industry. And then lastly, and this is stating the obvious, in order to get impact, in order to get change, and in order to improve through R&D, we must have adoption. And that is my segue onto Dave Packer, who will now give us a brief run through around the adoption space. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. So just reiterating what David said, it's critical that we're consulting with our stakeholders to ensure we're doing the right research. But if that research is not getting adopted, we're not getting practice change on farm and the value chain, then we've got no return on our investment and we're having no impact on industry. And we probably don't have the best, well, the industry doesn't have the best track record of actually getting practice change and getting adoption of new research and technology. And that's why we're taking considerable steps in implementing processes to ensure that, and as Mick said this morning, that R&D has a pathway to adoption. And where applicable, we're actually embedding this, the adoption phase within research and development projects. So you get a seamless flow once you're confident in a research output into commercial implementation. So we have the greatest opportunity for an outcome. And this is not to be confused with asking researchers to actually do the extension and adoption programs, but for research organisations to partner with producers and advisors, not just during this adoption phase, but throughout the whole initiation of the research idea all the way through to an outcome on farm. So that partnership is absolutely critical. We've got 3 phases of adoption or building skills to get an outcome on farm, and it all starts with awareness of the R&D or technologies. Importantly, in this space, we need to demonstrate value and speak in a language that's commercially relevant to producers and other stakeholders. Those of you in Northern Australia will recognise the Beef Up Forum brand. We'll continue with that with some more enhancements to maximise our return on investment in that space. In Southern Australia in 2020, you'll see the MLA Meetup Forum. So this is our new whole of farm initiative, which will be rolled out at the end of our Q1 calendar year next year. But we're not just doing one-day forums. We're investing and exploring other spaces of increasing awareness through things such as the marketing campaign. You've seen the genetics marketing campaign kick off earlier this year. We've got the display of that out in the trade stand. So that's a new approach to increasing awareness of breeding values to the commercial sector. So it's a different form to the traditional channels that MLA have utilised in the past. So once you've got awareness of the possible opportunities with certain research or technology, we need to ensure we've got the first steps in place to build those skills and knowledge amongst stakeholders, most importantly producers. So we've got the Edge Network brands, the Bredwell, Fedwells, but we're also exploring other ways of providing opportunities for learning. So that's e-learning platforms, short how-to videos and other methods, particularly for producers in extensive environments who can't make it along to face-to-face workshops at all times. Where we really are increasing our focus and investment is in the involve and partner space. And this is built on the principles of peer-to-peer, long-term, so greater than 12 months, supported and experiential learning. So the actual producers are implementing these practices on their place and supported in the process. We've got a couple of different platforms. We've got the producer demonstration site platform, and this has gone through some recent enhancements. So we've now got more funding opportunities for producer groups to get involved in demonstration sites. They're longer time frames, so up to 6 years, so we're a greater chance of achieving an outcome in this space, and much more flexibility in the framework. So we hope to see many more, much more engagement in those extensive environments under this platform. We've also got the Profitable Grazing Systems program, and this is built around that peer-to-peer learning. 8 to 10 producers working in groups, supported by a coach over a long period, addressing the particular priorities or issues for that specific for that group. So it's not a generic package, it's customised for that group. And we're seeing some really good uptake, particularly in Southern Australia, of the Profitable Grazing Systems program. And then we have these key concepts embedded into our larger programs of work that Dave spoke about, but also, where applicable, embedded into those research and development projects. So we do get that seamless flow from a research output through to practice change on farm and throughout the value chain. Importantly, we've also increased our focus on advisors. So when I talk advisors, it's not just farm consultants, but it's agronomists, veterinarians, livestock agents, merchandise staff, and everyone in between. These are a key part of both the delivery of our programs, but importantly a key stakeholder in helping achieve practice change across the industry. So it's important we ensure we have capability and skill in this sector so that we can ensure that we have a prosperous industry going forward. This year we launched the Livestock Advisor updates and recently launched the Red Meat Industry Professionals program, and there'll be more to come in this space to support the livestock advisors. So we heard from Don Mackay last night about one of the strategies to help achieve the target of doubling the value of Australian red meat sales over the next 10 years is to double the investment in the extension and adoption space, which is quite encouraging, and I guess the industry is now listening that adoption is critical for to demonstrate return on investment. It's not just from our statutory funding agreement with the government, but most importantly, you as the levy payers, you can see that we are investing and getting an outcome from our programs, which ensures we'll have a prosperous industry that's profitable and sustainable. So just to summarise from myself and Dave Beatty, producer consultation and stakeholder consultation is critical, that we have that, and it flows both ways, understanding what are the priorities and feeding back the effectiveness of our programs and the return on investment. It ensures we are doing the right research to get the maximum impact for our industry. And adoption is critical to demonstrate that impact, and where applicable we must embed that and have a seamless flow through the R&D process. Now we'll move on to our producer panel session.